Last week you, the viewers, showered us with your very mild enthusiasm for this new series, and so we had no choice but to jump back into the realm of Xbox Live indie games and pray that we returned unscathed. So ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Indecent Exposure, the video series that shines the spotlight on some of the best indie games that you can find on the Xbox 360. If you did watch that first episode, then you'll know we looked at DLC Quest, a short and sarcastic dig at the current state of downloadable content, which although entertaining, can be played through in around about 30 minutes. And so today I would like to show you something more substantial, and that means I'm going to be talking about Compromised, a brand new shoot 'em up that was released last Friday by developers Supersoul. Compromised is a top-down shooter utilising both joysticks for movement and firing. You'll fight your way through each of its 10 levels, which took me somewhere between 4 and 5 hours to complete, and most of this came down to either wave survival or clearing a passage through the level itself. But there's also 4 large-scale boss fights to contend with, which are completely hectic and definitely took me some time to try and master. There's an upgrade system, 25 different types of enemies, special abilities that require energy to use. There's a lot to this game. There's certainly a lot more than you'd normally expect from an Xbox Live indie game, and apparently the development team are still working on survival and horde modes, which will be added as free updates in the future. It is priced at the higher rate of 240 Microsoft points, which is equivalent to $3 or £2 and something, but you do get an impressive amount of content for your money. If you're a fan of shoot 'em ups, then stick around as we go into more detail. You'll be playing as Aero, which could be the name of the ship, or the pilot, or a program that controls the ship, I'm not entirely sure. There is a very basic storyline in place that tries to explain why you're shooting waves of enemies in a dark, grimy world full of things that want to end you, but it's not particularly engaging. However, as with most shmups, the important part of the game is the shooting waves of enemies part, and thankfully Compromised has that nailed down. As I said before, this is a dual stick shooter, which means that you move with the left analog stick and fire your standard weapon with the right. In addition to this, you'll also have a number of missiles and bombs at your disposal, which are much more powerful and are great against groups of enemies, but although they replenish over time, they can't be relied on constantly. When you do destroy an enemy, they'll drop energy and occasionally upgrade points that can be picked up. The energy can be consumed to activate one of 4 special abilities that did seem to vary in terms of usefulness. I found myself spending most of my energy on the shield, as it proved crucial to surviving most levels, and occasionally I would use the gravity bomb, which sucks enemies in, does a lot of damage, and looks really cool. The other 2 abilities, a kind of scattershot and an explosion of bullets, rarely seem to be worth the cost in comparison. Maybe that comes down to playstyle, but I would have liked to see those 2 abilities either cost less energy to use, or just prove to be more effective. The upgrade points can be spent at the end of each level, or following a death. They allow you to improve health, the damage of your attacks, how many missiles and bombs you're carrying, all the basics. Upgrades are upgrades, it's nice to feel a sense of progression. Interestingly, when you die you don't lose the upgrade points that you've collected. This means that if you have to attempt an area several times, you can continually improve your ship. This does help to alleviate some of the frustration that comes with playing a tricky shooter, and Compromised is a tricky shooter. The real key to completing each level is learning how to avoid damage whenever possible, as you'll often have to defeat several waves before you get any chance to regenerate health. Although you may be tempted to turn around and face a big group of enemies with a barrage of missiles, it's often a better idea to let them chase and whittle them down whilst you go. Each enemy is different, and so you'll also need to figure out what works with different types. Certain enemies drop mines, whilst others phase jump when you get too close. There's enough variation here to keep you on your toes, which is extremely important considering the repetitive nature of wave survival. But as you'd imagine, the real challenge and the most fun comes with the boss fights. They're huge, there's plenty of bullet hell moments, and I'd be very impressed if you managed to defeat any of these guys first time round. As you can see, the boss fights also do a good job of showing how visually impressive Compromise can be. This game could well be compared to some of the ones you'd find on the Xbox Live Arcade, let alone the indie game marketplace. As for the soundtrack that accompanies Compromised, well, I wasn't so crazy about it. It has an electronic, mechanical feel to it, which has no doubt been designed to fit around the story and the art style, but when it comes to shoot 'em ups, I think they really benefit from having a fast-paced, catchy track that really encapsulates how the player is feeling as they frantically try to avoid being hit. I found the background music to be disappointing in comparison. However, that is a fairly minor complaint considering how impressed I've been whilst playing through this game, and yeah, Compromised is a great example of the kind of indie games that I would like to find throughout this series. Speaking of which, I will be back next Thursday with another Xbox Live indie game, and you can either check back on pickgeek.com or subscribe to this YouTube channel if that's easier. Thank you very much for watching.